Am I actually live? I believe I am. Let me see. Oh, we're good now? Oh, perfect. Sorry about that. I had a whole intro. I was like 5 minutes into the stream almost. I didn't realize I wasn't live. Apologies. As you can tell, I'm a rookie at this. But anyways, well, guys, welcome back to Footy with an Edge. Let's kind of get right into it, right? We're going to talk about the inside story for Michael Carrick and his appointment. What we might see from him about tactics and formations against City this Saturday, and also some rumors around the next managerial appointment that we've got going on. So let's start with how Carrick got appointed. Jason Wilcox was the one that was leading the process. He's the one who actually sat down and with the candidates and actually interviewed them. Right now, some might say it's a little bit too late, right? Because there wasn't a succession plan, but albeit I don't necessarily think that they wanted to let go of Ruben Amorim so quickly as well. So he had 3 names on his short list, right? It was Carrick, Solskjaer, and Ruud van Nistelrooy. And his responsibility was to actually report back what he thought to the board and also to Sir Jim as well. Now, Ole was considered the early front runner, right? And why wouldn't he be, right? He has had experience. The fans loved him and his time here. I think after leaving his and seeing some of the results under Ranić and Ten Hag and even Amorim, right, a lot of the narrative around Ole started to shift, especially around his time at United. But Rob Dorsett from Sky Sports actually said this yesterday, and I quote, "I was told when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer met with Jason Wilcox, he understandably, to a large extent, said, if I do a good job and get you Champions League football, what is the reward? I'd like something written into my contract that says if I achieve that, then there is a substantive contract at the end of it." Now, Dorsett said that Michael Carrick also didn't have any sort of those types of requests, right? And I think that he's played that situation really well, understanding maybe the larger political game here at play. Whereas, I don't necessarily blame Ole for doing this, right? I don't think it's, maybe the wrong thing for him personally. He was burned before, right? Especially by the club. And we kind of saw that. And so he wanted some guarantees, right? He got the club's 3rd and then he got a 2nd and they still ended up sacking him at the end of it. So, but that's where we are. And that's the reality of it, right? The ownership doesn't seem to want to commit to anything, right? They wanted an interim because they want to retain the flexibility that they have. So they want to keep their options open for the summer. And we'll get to why that might be. Now, there's also additional information from The Athletic, right? Whereas Solskjaer's return would leave the club's leadership open to accusation of retreading old ground, going with Carrick would represent a cleaner break, which is true, right? Especially as you're going from Amorim to Fletcher to then Carrick. And also, Sir Alex Ferguson, from multiple sources confirming this, right, backed Carrick's appointment over Ole. Now, I know Fergie doesn't necessarily have an official role, but he's still considered a non-executive director at the club, and he sits inside of the meeting. So his voice, his opinion is still pretty important here. But so when Sir Alex when he speaks, right, people at the club are still going to listen. And that's really kind of how Carrick got in. But the question of the matter is, what exactly is he being asked to deliver? And this is where it's a bit of I wouldn't say it's a bit of a surprise, but maybe it's a bit of a misexpectation from my understanding, at least. So after Amorim had left that morning, Wilcox called a meeting with the players at Carrington, and he laid out what the target is for the rest of the season: Champions League qualification. Now, I don't know if you saw this, but Mark Goldbridge had a field day with this, and honestly, I totally get it. Right? You sack your manager, you bring in an interim, you're not going to spend in January, and then you're telling the players to go get top 4. It's like, come on, the deck seems to be stacked against you. But it's important, and as crazy as this sounds on paper, right? Like that's kind of what the club believes in. And, the math is there a bit, right? We're seventh right now. We're 1 point behind fifth place Brentford, right? Where we think, having that getting into the top five is going to be equivalent to the Champions League spaces. Hopefully, the other English clubs, have a deeper run. I don't really have much hope for Tottenham, but let's keep that coefficient high so that way it's not us chasing after fourth, but it's us chasing after fifth, which seems a little bit more of a doable task, right? Now, that's kind of where the ownership is coming from, right? They feel like that it's a realistic goal. I know some of us don't necessarily think so, especially because we're not seeing replacements. But one of the contributors on the channel has said in the past, right? They genuinely believe that this squad could probably achieve top four, and it's true that what they're doing and what what messaging is coming out is that's exactly what we're seeing, right? They still think that the squad is able to get top four. Now, I know you guys in the chat are going to be voicing your opinions on whether or not that's actually a reality. Get it? I totally understand. But I'm just trying to present to you, what does Ineos think? What does Jason Wilcox think? What do Omar Barada think, right? But that being said, let's kind of move on a little bit and talk about how we might expect Carrick to maybe set up, right? So on paper, yes, Carrick plays a 4-2-3-1. And in fact, we can actually see this here too, right? This is pulled out from The Athletic. They had a great article out today on this. And you see in about 90% of games, Carrick prefers to play that 4-2-3-1, at least on the initial offset of where it is. But he holds the same belief that Amrim has too, right? The formation will be changing throughout the game, and he doesn't really care necessarily about, I'll say, sticking to a rigid structure, right? And so we've seen him be adaptable in the past, where you've got 4-4-2, you got 3-5-2, 4-3-3, 3-4-3, 4-4-4-1. You've seen all of these things, right, for where he started. But that's kind of where we're at. Now, how does Carrick kind of improve, right, this team? Or what did he do at Borough that, kind of gives me hope, gives Nelson hope as well? This chart here is Middlesbrough's non-penalty XG for and against. It's a trend over time, right? So The Athletic were gracious enough to do this research and provide an awesome visualization here. And you can kind of see that under Chris Wilder, they really hit the peak of non-penalty XG in the middle of that season. And again, it's a 10-game rolling average, so you can see like in midseason they were really good, but then it continued to fall off and taper off. They started strong again in the beginning, but then fell off and tapered off until which point Michael Carrick came into play. And the reason for that is, they were sitting in 21st place, right? When Carrick was appointed, but you see the trend immediately start to go up. And that's what led to them getting fourth. You see the best performance coming at the latter half or towards the end of the season. His first full season in charge, though, I'll say it's a bit mixed. I believe they started off very strong from what the data is telling us. Maybe at this mark here around the 10-game mark, there's a little bit of question marks and struggles, but then they continue to go from strength to strength and then fall off eventually later in the season. And you see, even in the third season, similar. They're starting off strong, but as teams are starting to figure them out a little bit more, or maybe as players are leaving, right, you see them continue to do off. And this is maybe the only concerning part to me, but at that point, Carrick had left, right? And then Middlesbrough have gone on and gotten two other managers since then. But let's take a further deeper dive into some of those metrics and what we might be able to see. They were high in possession. And I think what most people will tell you today is that if you're not a team that is good in possession or able to retain the ball well, you're likely not necessarily going to be winning the league. I think the last time we saw it, maybe Leicester City, where they weren't necessarily always dominant with the ball, but they also ranked first in XG per shot. So their chances that they were making were good, clean chances. However, what does that data point really actually tell us? Carrick really wants to have a structured approach to the way he's attacking. James Lawrence Alcott really put out a nice video today, and I'd encourage you guys to go watch it. But he made a really interesting point, right? Carrick often uses what looks like two left wingers, but in fact, it's actually the left back who's pushing up high and playing like that winger, and the player is most nominally in that left wing position. So he's expecting that whoever is there on the left hand side will drift into the half spaces. Maybe that's why we're seeing so many of these chances or so many of these shots coming through as well, is right because for Carrick, he's really looking to overload on that left hand side, but that's due to the profile of players he probably had. I believe at United we have maybe a similar profile, right? I really think Patrick Dorgu will benefit under Carrick's management because he'll be able to push forward more, and Cunha can drop into that half space in behind, and we'll probably likely see some great interchanges. However, what that slow controlled possession is also led to the least amount of shot or fourth least amount of shots conceded as well per 90 with 10.1 as well. But you can see, right, and Andy keeps on bringing this up. Other folks have brought this up. They sat in 13th for PPDA, right? 12.7 was measured. So 13, I think, passes per defensive action is how that correlates to. So really, why is that the case? And it really goes back to the way that Carrick wants to structure the team. He doesn't necessarily want to win the ball in the attacking third. He wants them to reorient themselves, reorganize back into that, defensive shape. And really in his defensive shape, you'll start seeing he plays a lot with like a 3-4-4-2, right? So he wants the team to come back to that position before they go ahead and decide to, try and win back the ball. Now, what does that mean for United, right? So United actually are completing less and less take-ons. And the reason, right, we see this over time, right? 11.7 back in 2019, 2020, and down now to like 6.7 here. Now, what does this mean for Carrick, and how will we expect our players to maybe improve in this department? Carrick wants to give attacking freedom to the players that are there. So he doesn't really care about the positions of the players. It's more based on the strengths that they have gotten, right? And so he wants to ensure that the players have the freedom, the flexibility, and the creativity to be able to attack in that way. Now, they're not necessarily supposed to be pressing monsters or anything like that, and they're not looking to maybe aggressively, have transitions on the ball. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to, I'll say, be allowed any sort of freedom. Now, when I go back to this idea of, hey, they had the highest amount of XG per shot. Now, there is some control, right? I think what Carrick is trying to say here is, for him, it's really important that the team recognizes they have a focal point, especially inside the team. And that's why yesterday on last night's live, I said Benjamin Šeško will also really benefit from Carrick. But this is what we're going to expect to see. And I know in our Discord, one of our members asked, like, well, we don't have any wingers. So, how can we really realistically expect Carrick to play a 4-2-3-1? I think it's good to note that Mbeumo and Ahmad are coming back. They can play in that right-hand side and give us that width that's needed. But what we've seen from Carrick is that he doesn't look for the width always from the wingers. He's looking for it from, one of the fullbacks, right? And we see that Patrick Dorgu is really good at being able to provide us that width. So even if we set out in this 4-2-3-1, what we might end up seeing is kind of like this 3-2-5 in this attacking position, or in this attacking role, where we do see the likes of Bruno in the midfield, maybe continuing to push up, whereas like a double pivot of Casemiro and Ugarte stay pretty locked in step, with Mazraoui helping in that line as well. Or maybe we might even see one of the center backs, one of the defensive midfielders drop back into the center back line to help support with that cover as the team continues to like push up as well. So these are all things that I'm excited to see against Manchester City. I know that we might not necessarily be as ball dominant. Maybe it might not be Carrick's style of play because he's going to look to adapt. But these are my thoughts. It's a bit of a tactical preview on it. And we'll get thoughts of you folks in the chat as well afterwards. Now, to just round it off, here's the latest bit of transfer news on the managerial side. I know I'm a junkie for this. I know you guys are junkies for it too. But most recently, Julian Nagelsmann has gotten, linked with the United job. And I think a lot of this is stemming from his relationship with Vavell. You guys are smart. We've been calling this out since day one. Because Vavell is a part of the team, he's definitely going to try to find a way to be able to bring Nagelsmann. Why I think that might be a better appointment than maybe somebody like Tuchel and like Southgate. Well, I mean, Southgate is just now apparently not linked with us anymore, is because that relationship that he has with Vavell. And if Jason Wilcox does end up leaving, which is my theory, at some point in February or March, then Vavell is likely the person who can take in that role. And really what we see in successful organizations is that the sporting director and the head coach or manager have a really good relationship. They have a tight relationship, and that's what leads to success. It doesn't seem like that was the case for Wilcox and Amorim. But hopefully within the next appointment that's that there really does, that we can really find this synergy between both the sporting director and the manager. But that being said, I've got two awesome folks in Alex and in Ryan here to join me. So why don't we get their thoughts? I think Alex, I'll come to you. How do you think we're going to do against City? Do you think that Carrick is going to have us see something different?
I think it's going to be really, really difficult, right? And evening all. It was going to be difficult if it was Amorim. It was going to be difficult if it was Fletcher. It's going to be difficult if it's Carrick. He's going to get 2 training sessions before the derby. It's a 12:30 kickoff. For me, I think he's going to try and keep it pretty simple. I think some of those training pictures that they released earlier showing him talking to Casemiro were quite interesting. It's funny when you think about it because they actually played against each other back in 2017. I think it was a preseason friendly. So yeah, it'll be hard. I think one thing that Carrick's Middlesbrough team did a fair bit, and I think this is in the same Athletic article that you're talking about. They like compact 4-4-2 when they're out of possession, and at least from a tactical point of view, I think that's quite easy for this United team to do. And he might not get them, pressing super aggressive, but at the very least, he'll say block the passing lanes. Mm-hmm. And if anything, that should be easier for these players to pick up quickly. But it's against City. Yeah. It's against the
Nelson,
team.
I'm sorry, Alex. I think your mic is cracking. I said Nelson because I was reading Nelson's comment as the case. Maybe because it's with your headphones, I might need to just have a quick charge or something. But we'll go to Ryan while you kind of sort that out a little bit. Ryan, give me your thoughts.
I was laughing then because that reminded me of when I called Vinny Nelson. So apparently we all just call everyone Nelson now.
I think so. Yeah, I think this justifies you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it makes me feel a bit less bad.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I was making some notes. Let me just double check what order the agenda was in because I'll try and go in the same order. Oh yeah, so Carrick. I'm probably one of the only people on the planet that's a United fan and wanted us to go for Solskjaer over Carrick. I really don't rate him. Yes, Middlesbrough got better when he first came in, but they have also gotten better when he left, which isn't a great indictment on him. Hopefully, it's a case like Company at Burnley where he was a good manager, but the style of play maybe didn't work out. Like you said, maybe players leaving, stuff like that. So maybe there's some hope that he fits better at United than Middlesbrough. I mean, as much as I don't believe in it, I will sit there and hope that I'm wrong. I would love nothing more than him to go and win the next 10 games and me to be eating humble pie. But yeah, I will say I'm just going to nitpick on one thing Nelson said yesterday about the Portuguese league and the championship. Yes, if you look at the Opta ratings, the championship is 0.01 rating higher than the Portuguese league, but it's a bit of a misleading difference because the top 5 for the Portuguese league is a lot stronger, and the top 10 is a fair bit stronger. It's the very bottom teams in the Portuguese league that make the difference. So being like 7th in the championship is nowhere near as good as being 1st in the Portuguese league, for example. But I do get what he was saying. But yeah, I'm not an expert on how Carrick sets out, so I'll defer to you guys on that. It looked like you said a ball dominant style of play, which again might suit us more. Could also lead to the United DNA guys getting very angry if that attack speed is true, because if we're passing that ball around and we're 1-0 down in the 80th minute at Old Trafford, I can guarantee you now all you're going to hear is chants of attack, like almost like you're at an American basketball game or something. They will not be happy if we're messing around with the ball. I did go back and watch his games that he had under us, the 3 games, and I will say, I didn't realise it at the time, but wow, De Gea saved us in those games. We could have lost those games by 3 or 4 if we had Onana or Bayindir, and I think Lomans will probably be somewhere in between. But yeah, have you?
I think Alex, before you go, I just want to point out that in the chat we've got a person with a Carrick out handle.
I saw that earlier.
Ole and Ferrick are
Wow.
both out of their debt. I mean, he's not even managed one game, and we've already got people saying Carrick out. That's just, I guess that's his fan base for you sometimes. But Alex, continue.
Hopefully you can hear me a little bit clearer now.
Yes, much better.
Yeah, cool. I mean, I think a lot has been made about Carrick and kind of in terms of his style and, this kind of more patient build-up. I think that it will be difficult for some people to take on. And it's like you were just saying, Charlene, or Ryan, let's say the game state is you're a goal down in the 80th minute and you want them to start pushing forwards. I don't think he's so inflexible when they're in possession to not, put the foot on the gas a little bit, because I think that it does feel with Carrick that there a lot of what he does. But I've watched a couple of Middlesbrough games, and a lot of what he does seems to be a reflection of how he played. And I remember watching him a lot at Old Trafford. And sometimes you see things when you're in the ground that you don't always see on TV, because you can watch the person whilst they might not be on camera. And, I think what I was saying before about out of possession and, a flat 4-4-2, hopefully that can be instilled pretty quick. I think with the in possession stuff and how they move the ball, he said quite a lot, early on about, how he found Van Gaal football very mentally draining because of the rigidity of it. So you'd kind of hope that Carrick, the coach, can remember the problems Carrick, the player, had when he was playing under that. And with that in mind, be a little bit more flexible. But I mean, that's just me thinking out loud here. You can shoot me down in the chat if you want. But I think it's, he said quite a few things, especially in that article also, about the front, like the attacking players trying to be, giving them the freedom to express themselves and things like that. So, let's just see. I look at that and think, how is he going to get enough attackers on the pitch to be able to do that, especially if it's 4-2-3-1? That's my one question that I'm grappling with and have been grappling with for a few days.
Zakir in the chat also agrees with you. I have also a feeling Carrick will make some changes to the style. Let's not think that he can't be flexible and is only rigid. Listening to him today, he said winning is the most important for now, which I think echoes the statements or the sentiments of the leadership as well, because they want to be able to see teams winning. And then I just gotta say, Carrick out said that his handle is not to be taken seriously or lightly, depending on who's reading this. I feel like he's just joking. So, but cheers, mate. Thanks for being a good sport about it. But Alex, so Ryan, you were about to say, yeah.
No, I was just saying. Correct me if I'm wrong. See, the rigidity is one thing that worried me. It might have been clickbait, so correct me if it is. But I remember reading that towards the end at Middlesbrough, he was asked about changing his system, and he basically said, "I'm not changing my system. That's how I think things should be done," or something along those lines.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. He did say that, and I think that had to more. I think it had more to do with the fact that there was a profile of players that were there with him. Didn't necessarily suit what he had ideally wanted, and I know that Borough probably had a lot of notable exits, or were planning for a lot of notable exits too.
Yes.
So I think at the end of the season, they just decided that it would be a good time then to part ways if we're not going to be able to agree. But that's kind of how a mature club handles it. It's really crazy that I say that Borough are more mature than United in this sense, because you see the same disagreement happen with Amram and with Wilcox, but we're just like that, right? Like we just decided that, okay, if we're not going to do this, then fine, we'll have you leave right now then instead. But yeah.
I think, Ryan, you made a really, really good point, and I saw that quote as well, and I've just pulled up a couple of quotes on this philosophy article that The Athletic did. And these are quotes directly from Carrick when he told reporters quite early in his Middlesbrough days. He said, "I much prefer winning a game, playing great football and scoring a lot of goals, but it's impossible to do that every week. Even the best football teams in history have had certain games where they've found a way to win." That's what he said.
United made Bayern Munich the treble, right? We didn't deserve in that game by all accounts.
I mean, even the teams, even like the 08 team and those successful teams where Carrick won all his silverware at Old Trafford, they didn't play amazing football every single week. There were games where it was a bit dull to watch, but they ground out a 1 or a 2-0 win. They found a way to win, and I think that element is very, very important, because Fletcher alluded to it in his last press conference after the Brighton game as well, in that these players need to find a way to win games. And I think that's probably what he's been telling Carrick between the Brighton game and now, and thinking that's I'm sure going to be one of the messages that has come out in training, that they need to find a way to win, however ugly that might be. And that involves a lot of hard work. And I think he said that also in that podcast. So I think that's one of the things we can expect, and hopefully expect on the weekend.
So I got a question for both of you, right? I haven't had a chance to talk to you guys in a couple of days, especially because of the way that the stream schedule has been. And I asked them this last night, so I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Is there a world where Carrick becomes a permanent manager or a permanent head coach for United at the end of the season, that is? So.
Shall I go first?
Go for it.
Sure.
I mean, I was thinking about this earlier, listening to the United Inside Carrington podcast with the interviewing for the first time, and was thinking, there is a world. Let's be honest. I think there is a world, but he's been very clever in making sure that world is decided by fan base, if anything else. Like the world is a bit of it's an outside chance, but let's look at it like this. If United somehow end up with, let's say, 70 points, between 65 and 70 points this season, that might be enough for top 5. And if that gets them in the Champions League, and you see some good performances along the way, I think you're going to step into a realm where people are saying, he's done it for this many games and he's proven himself over half a season. Why not give him a 2-year contract and just see where it goes? And I think the fan base will start asking those questions. And if the fan base start asking those questions, Ineos will be under a lot of pressure. And I think that's what might happen. I'm not saying it definitely will happen. I'm just saying that if that begins and that ball starts rolling, all of a sudden, there will be pressure on Ineos. And if there's pressure, then it wouldn't be that surprising if that debate begins.
Yeah, so not an overly different opinion. I will say I'd see being fifth as probably being about par, and I think he needs to get a bit higher than that to have a realistic chance of getting the permanent role. I think fourth would probably be the most realistic. Even then, I think he would be unlikely to get it because apparently Ineos think that that's where we should be because they're deluded. If he got into the top three, then I think it's more or less a certainty that he would, but I think the chance of him getting top three is closer to 0 than it is to 1%. I mean, if you just look at the league, even if he did amazing, someone else has to really mess up in order for that to have the remotest chance. I think with Ineos, I honestly think anything can happen. There's a chance that at the end of the season they go and give it to Ole for the rest of the time. They're that unpredictable. No, I'm not. That was a joke prediction, Shailene. I saw your face there, like, wait, what? I'm just talking, like, yeah, they're how crazy they are. But yeah, I definitely would not put the odds very high of him getting a permanent role. Put it this way, I have us predicted for finishing like 10th or below, so that shows how optimistic I am.
Oh wow! Like
I
even
think
with
I
like
think we're screwed. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I mean,
where does that doubt?
My prediction at the beginning of the season was 8th. My prediction at the beginning of the season was 8th.
Yeah.
And I think that's where United will end, even with all these changes. I think that's where they'll end.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, So a big part of the pessimism comes from his first 5 games. I think there's a very realistic chance that he comes out of these first 5 games with 4 or 5 points, maybe lower. And if you start off that badly, you're not going to have the momentum to carry you through to the end of the season doing well. So I can see it being a season that snowballs badly, from bad to worse, more than I can see it going a season that snowballs from good to better. I hope I'm wrong. Don't get me wrong. I really want to be wrong. That's just my prediction, essentially.
Okay. I got you. Now, it's really, I don't say scary, but like, I'm really curious to see what happens if we actually go down your route, Ryan. Do we?
Yeah, I've not even thought about that.
like I mean, there's certain implications. I don't know if I want to see. Maybe I want to, right? Maybe the entire board gets sacked, right? Like, especially if we finish like below 10th, and that's the second season in a row that we've done that.
I will say,
yeah.
I think if that happened, I think Wilcox is gone. I think Wilcox's job relies on Carrick getting at least top 6. I think if he finishes lower than Amorim was in, when he's the one who spearheaded Amorim going out, then I think his head's on the line. For sure.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like, I think this is very much you've created this mess, now you need to fix it, is the kind of words that I imagine Sir Jim Ratcliffe has used with Wilcox. So, like that's the, and if he doesn't fix it, i.e., like, he's going to have to report to the board why they haven't finished in the top 6 or don't have European football next year. And I'm sure the board probably already know what that means in terms of revenues. I mean, I was reading it earlier. The numbers going around at the moment about this season only being a 40-game season and 2 early cup exits, that could cost United around £50 million in matchday revenue that's lost. So you take that into account, and then take into account the cost of how much money you bring in from European football. If that doesn't happen, I think even the Glazers will look at that and say, this is going to affect the bottom line, and we can't afford this. So we need to find someone else.
All right, we've got some new folks. Raphael, Sweaty Crop, how are you? Namaste. Oh, you just left, sadly. Okay, let's go to Subtype. Subtype, I know you wanted to come in. How are you doing, man?
Yeah, doing good. How are you?
I'm good. why don't you tell me, what do you think? How do we fare against Manchester City?
Um, I mean, a draw will be a good result, in my opinion. Yeah, considering where we are at. More importantly, I mean, I read the whole article in terms of why they chose to go with Carrick. And to me, it's actually a bit concerning. Don't get me wrong, I'm happy that Carrick is here, but the reasons that have been given, that again tells me that things are not improving, or there is no way that Wilcox is ready to give any control, because, or the board is ready to give any control, because on one hand they expect a Carrick to like, the final expectation is we go into top four and get Champions League, but between Carrick and Ole, they decided to go with Carrick because apparently Ole made two things clear. He wanted his own backroom staff, because backroom staff, in the article, they have mentioned that backroom staff was one of the things that was contentious. And then the other thing that Ole pointed out is around team requiring a wider rebuild. So he basically pointed out the same thing, that hey, there is a wider rebuild required for of the squad, which is basically goes against, or basically in aligns with what Amorim has been saying, basically, right? So because of these two things, they have basically, I mean, the way I read it is that's why they chose Carrick over Ole, because now they are able to bring in their own people in the backroom staff. I mean, there is some Woodgate is coming from Carrick's background, so there is like a good mix of some people that board probably wanted and some people that Carrick wanted. And then Carrick may have basically been aligned with, okay, I'll work with the players that you have, or okay, with this squad I'm confident, or I'll try my best to get top four. So
Right.
yeah, that's just my general feeling. But I completely agree that if we lose out on Champions League spots, I think Wilcox is probably is gone,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Red
I will say,
Olsen. Yep.
Subtype said something that I forgot to say there, which yeah, I agree entirely, that I feel like Carrick's been appointed because he's the one that went into that interview and went, yes sir, yes sir. How do you want me to wipe your ass, sir?
Yeah.
Basically.
Which is
Whereas
kind of
Carrick had a
ironic.
bit
Wow.
of
I mean, which
expectation.
is kind of ironic, because Ole actually, everyone in the fan base was actually saying that, oh, Ole was the yes man in the previous regime, and now he'll be a yes man again. But and another reason is he may have put a point across that, hey, if I achieve this, I would like to be considered for the permanent job, and that was again a point of contention to me. That seems to be the case, basically. So in the final interview, it's kind of like Carrick was like, I'll work with you, whatever terms you have, and I'll try and do my best, basically. So yeah.
Yeah. No worries. Good. Good thoughts that you just shared there. Red Olsen in the chat said Microscope FC. There's no wriggle room. I think you meant to say wiggle room at United, and I think that's true. I think it's true for both the manager, but also for maybe our sporting director as well. But Vic, let's go to you next. How are you doing, man? I think this is the first time I'm having a conversation with you. So, where are you from, bud?
I live in India. How are you, Shalin?
Oh,
I've
I'm
been
good.
on the
I
panel
think I've heard
with
you before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So Vic, give me your thoughts, on the whole situation.
With the Carrick bit, whoever the interim manager is going to be, person's going to be around for about till the end of the season. Hey, so I mean, I'm exhausted, man. Like all of you, like just going through the tactics and things like that. And if I'm looking ahead for just another 19 games or 20 games that we still have left in the bag, I think I hope he does a decent job, Carrick. And credit to him, he's gone and evolved as a manager in Middlesbrough. But I don't think there's too much to read into that and how it translates into how he's going to manage in the Prem and a giant like United. There's too much being made about that. So, and I think Ryan just addressed how the Portuguese league or the German league is quite underrated. Like we keep saying the championship, yes, it is competitive. But if you look at the current crop of managers, the current managers, you'd find that apart from Eddie Howe and Thomas Frank and Enzo Maresca, because he was Pep's understudy, who's observed Pep football from very close quarters, it's only Lebris, Sunderland's manager, who's pretty much done well, who's come out of the championship. Scott Parker, we've seen him come up to the Prem and go back, and no one's really clicked from the championship that much that I can think of in the current crop of Premier League managers. But moving to another subject here, I just find it interesting that this is the first manager who's left United since Sir Alex who had the dressing room. Everyone else exited
In
where
Amram,
they
you're saying?
lost it. Yeah,
Okay.
Amram, yeah. Everyone else exited because they lost the dressing room for different reasons. And now there are two players I can see throughout this season who have taken games by the scruff of the neck, or at least tried to, which is Bruno and Amat. I mean, Cunha, there's always Endeavour in the middle of the pitch. Mbumo links up well and gets in there. But I've felt it's Bruno and Amat who take the initiative. Now, it's down to the players now, clearly. Ineos is not going to buy any expensive players to help Carrick out because he's interim. And in that case, it's all down to the players to where we finish at the end of the season. And we have concerns about where Amat's going to play in this Carrick system. And Bruno, I thought was deflated, half deflated, just knowing Ineos was ready to sell him earlier this summer. And now that Amram's gone, and I felt Bruno had this proper connection. Like he was evolving into the player Ruben wanted him to evolve into out of position, and he was just performing so well. And the more we discuss about how we lack specialist players and how Carrick needs them and things like that, we're starting to see how Amram was working wonders with the players we have. I mean, I think that's something that's emerging the more we discuss the deficiencies we have in our starting 11. So if Ahmad's not guaranteed of his position on the right, and if Bruno's lost motivation and there are already murmurs about him having lost faith in this management of the club, basically, the hierarchy, and if it's down to the players to finish higher than 6th when Ruben was sacked, and that was the statement. That the statement from the club was, we believe we can finish higher than where we are currently. They've just, I don't know what's going to happen now. I think it's all down to the players and how they feel about how they go about the rest of the season.
A question for you, Vic. Oh, you're muted,
Yeah.
by the way, Shailene. But a question for you, Vic, if Shailene doesn't mind. Do you think the fact that Amram had the dressing room might limit the new manager bounce? Is that what you're alluding to?
Not necessarily. It just throws everyone into this kind of confusion. Like, hey, what is going on here? Like, imagine Mbumo, and Mbumo has got that United feel about him. He reminds me, and Cunha and all these guys who came in with their, they had high motivation to succeed at this club and to push their levels to the next. And then they start to believe in the Ruben system. Like just before I think at the start of the busy festive fixtures, and when all of them went off to AFCON, and Ruben played the 4 at the back system the first time, he was asked if he was compromising on his philosophy, and then he said, when I came in, we suffered the first season, the half season that he got. We suffered. We stuck to a system they've never played because I have to get the system into them. There has to be that automation that needs to kick in. Each player needs to move in a certain way. Patterns need to develop. And so now that has happened, now situation dictates that I play 4 at the back. I can afford to do it because we work so hard to develop into the 3 at the back system. And we're not a complete finished article, but we've made improvements in Ruben's system, the way we play in a few ways that I could see. Anyway, that's up for debate. But the point is, I'm not saying it's a hurdle for Carrick, but also from a very human perspective, the players must be confused.
Can I say something?
Yeah, Rafa, I was about to come to you. Go ahead.
Sorry, Cap. Hi. Good to see you all. It's 3 in the morning here.
Oh, wow.
I'm
Okay.
just trying to keep my eyes a bit awake. I think that when we talk, I'm on when we play City, I'm going to be rooting for us to win, but mostly I don't care anymore about tactics to think, or I don't care to talk about. I've lost that feeling to talk, even interest in tactics, managers, this, formations. That's just gone. I just want my team to win. Generally, I fear they're going to lose. I think we're going to get smashed against City. So it's a very difficult place to be for me. But our basic issue, I think, and which Fletcher called it out in a way, our players are psychologically not strong enough. I think they've probably been, very understandably, I'd say, psychologically damaged by that season when they finished 15th and lost in a Europa final to Spurs of all people. And I think that I don't think that they have it in them to have a winning mentality to get anywhere near Champions League this year. I'm seeing it going downwards. However talented Carrick may or may not be, the mentality of the players is simple. Let alone, we're not even talking about quality. We're talking about
Right.
mentality to fight. To fight. When we're 2-0 down to City and maybe come back at least to 2-2 or something like that.
You know, I
We
think
don't have
Rafa,
that.
you make an interesting point with that. And I felt like earlier this season that the team was doing pretty good in terms of not totally collapsing, right? And so I understand what you're saying, and I get where Fletcher is coming from too. But I think under Ole, like we went on this crazy run where we would go 1-0 down and then still somehow manage to come back and win games, and it just really felt like why couldn't they just start with the mentality that we're 1-0 down, because we would almost always play better when we actually did go that way.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. Maybe there's a balance here for us to have where we kind of go, do we want to be a little bit more resilient so that way we don't totally collapse whenever we find ourselves in that situation, because I think that was inherently what it started building up, under Ten Hag quite a bit too, especially with some of the large losses that were coming to play. So I don't know.
We don't.
Maybe
Yeah,
I'm
we
out of
don't. We don't have we didn't have a 7-0 with
Yeah.
Amram to Liverpool, something like that. We were
the
changing.
2-1.
Yeah, exactly. We were changing, but my thinking is that in a way, I think Carrick will set us up very well defensively, but we have too many mistakes in us. We've seen it particularly. I'm really afraid for Yoro. I think he's having a bad time. Ideally, he should have been taken out of the equation. We don't have Ligt ready yet. I don't know where Maguire is at the moment. Heaven is still young. Leach is still coming back. We have so many mistakes in us against a City team. They're going to make mincemeat of our defense. Even if Carrick, does all the right things, he can coach a defense, but the defense has still got to do it.
You think, yeah, what you're saying is like he could set us out tactically for a win,
100%.
or for a good defense, but the players might end up. Yeah, okay, no, that's valid. Yeah, fair.
But we're not ready for that yet. We're not. Our players, mindset, other things.
Yeah, I'm actually really like this idea. I like the player psychology side of it too, a bit, especially with it. I kind of found it funny that people were memeing on the mentality monsters thing that Pep Linders had kind of put into the forefront. But like it really does matter. I think there's a significant take to it. I'm curious if you guys think that the coaching staff though that's there, so specifically with two of them, one with Johnny Evans and then two with Travis Binion, would help, improve that mental side of the game. And I say that because, Johnny Evans just played with them and he was seen as a leader in the dressing room. And then for Travis Binion, like he knows I think he knows all of the players that are like 23 and under, right? Or whatnot inside of that squad as well. And so he probably can also get the best out of them too. So, Alex, I'll come to you. What do you think? Do you think that the coaches we have in our employ right now will be able to help with the mental side?
You'd kind of hope so. I think, people forget with Evans was in the academy. He came all the way through the academy system and played obviously with those teams from the noughties and the mid to late noughties, as well as the Ten Hag's team. But I completely agree with you that Travis Binion will be important for like that link, especially that link with the academy. I think Darren Fletcher going back to the under 18s is also interesting. I think Carrick had a good relationship with Fletcher before being appointed as interim. So that's all important. I think also as well, I wouldn't underestimate Steve Holland, because I know there've been a lot of talk about Steve Holland and his time at England and so forth. And I know one or two other content creators have been talking about Gareth Southgate, but I don't think there's anything in that. But with Steve Holland, he was very important in getting the mental side right with that England team that went to Euros finals. And I think having a different perspective from someone who is external to United and has no links to United come in and help with the mental side of it, I think you can't underestimate that. I mean, I've been one of these people asking the question why the club hasn't gone down the road of full-time sports psychologist for a while, because I think there are a lot of players, like what Raphael said earlier, there are a lot of players in this squad who I think mentally are quite damaged, and I don't really know whether some of them are kind of damaged beyond repair mentally.
But
I'm surprised.
Alex, that's exactly what I'm saying. I don't think it's like, I think it's really profound, probably. They probably need something like, I'm not joking, like group psychotherapy.
Yeah.
There's something, this is a very difficult place for those players. And we can't imagine what it's like to go and play in front of 70,000 people and lose the way we're losing week after week. No, I think none of us can really imagine that.
Yeah, especially when they start booing, and especially when you start making mistakes, because you start questioning yourself. I mean, you've seen it with Yoro already, right? How he reacted after what happened at Selhurst Park when he made a mistake for the penalty, and United won that game. They found a way and they won that game. But that we're talking about a kid, right? Having to go through that, and then equally, I know Dallow's become a little bit of a meme, but at the same time, I think a lot of it is mental.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that, like, we talk about the weight of the shirt a lot and about how difficult it can be at Old Trafford, and we are an emotional fan base, right? We all want them to do well. We all want the next coach, whoever that is, interim or permanent, to be the one that turns around the oil tanker, right? So, like, even with that, the players also know it, and the players have talked about it a little bit already. Like I use Dallo as the example. He said it under Ten Hag. He said, the reason we want to be here is because we want to be the players who turned it around. We want to be the ones who are in that squad when United are competing again. And
right.
And that's and every time you go one step back again, like with this whole situation, it is going to be difficult.
For Alex, for what it's worth, Dave Brailsford and his marginal gains philosophy, I'm surprised that you saying that, hey, why haven't we gone down this sports psychologist route, isn't something that he had considered in his initial assessment at the club. Yeah,
I mean, I don't understand why there hasn't, like, why Stephen Peters, the inner chimp theory sports psychologist, why hasn't he spent more time at Carrington? Like, maybe he has spent some, but why not more?
Sancho to a sports psychologist as well.
We did, but I think that was in Holland or something, right? Like,
it was like a contract type thing.
Yeah. But I've been kind of disappointed because, in a sense, for me, I was kind of, although he wasn't a football guy, I was kind of thinking, what's Dave Brailsford going to bring? Are we going to see these kind of, perhaps some of them wacky innovations, but things that really make a difference? What have we really seen apart from a rebuild of Carrington?
Yeah, maybe that was his like his, I'll say, not magnum opus, but I think that was his biggest contribution to the club was that rebuild. Because if you look at his time in cycling and also in some of the other ones, he was really focused around changing things in the environment that they could control, and maybe a little bit less on like the psychology side. But you would hope that he would have at least suggested bringing somebody like that in or growing. Yeah. Let's move from from this conversation to be to kind of like, there was a debate earlier in the chat between like, is Nagelsmann somebody that's realistic, or is Tuchel more realistic? I'd love your opinion, not on the next United manager.
Come on.
Yeah.
Nagelsmann is highly unrealistic. He's unrealistic with one, I don't think he'd want to come. Why would he want to come to a basket case like us? The second is
his buddy is
Wilcox. They're going to be so afraid. They can't deal with Amram. How are they going to deal with Nagelsmann? They want someone weak that they can control. Do you think Nagelsmann is going to be controllable in that way?
I mean, I don't think he's controllable, but this leads me to the question that I want to ask you guys is, do we almost perform better with maybe like a Rose Senior style of an appointment where it's just a guy who is there to coach through whatever ideology and philosophy that the club's on? And I know I'm saying Rose Senior because that's the most direct comparison. Or do we need more of like a stronger character, like in the room? Or do we just say, hey, don't hire just a manager, also hire the sporting director that they were working with next, and just get rid of the current crop?
I was going to say that. Yeah, I mean, I was going to say that in answer to what Raphael was saying. I think the only scenario in which you see Julian Nagelsmann at Old Trafford is if you have a different sporting director. Like, I've got this weird idea in my head, and chat, you can shoot me down for this, right, if you want. But I would not be surprised if in the summer you see Jason Wilcox get sacked if United have no European football next year, and United and the hierarchy then go looking at a Red Bull style sporting director. I'm not going to say Ralph Rangnick, but like that kind of thing.
You talked about Viana, how Viana was crucial. I think I remember you hearing
for Amram,
how Viana was crucial to Amram. Let's just say, in a hypothetical world, we had bought both of them. I think we would have seen a very different picture. Same with Jikiet and Pep. Man, they're
Yeah, but
completely
Cheeky
aligned.
came in before Pep, right? At
That's right.
City,
Yes,
and he
but
actually
but,
like laid
but
out
they
the
were working
foundation.
together in
They were,
Barcelona.
yep.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
the through line already. I'm sure
Wow.
Pep said to Sheikh Mansour, get Shiki. I'm not coming unless you get Shiki.
But see, this is a really interesting part about the whole development of it is that when Abu Dhabi came in to purchase Man City, they had the idea in their head that they kind of wanted to become the Barcelona of England with Man City, not necessarily with just how they play, but also with their youth academy, with also being able to, attract the best talent. And they were showing like a significant level of ambition and investment. And they made those moves where, from the offset, they hire Ferran Soriano and they hire Chiki Begiristain to start really prepping them in the way to be able to get like, okay, when Pep becomes available, like, okay, we're going to go get him. That period where he left Barcelona and takes that break for a year, a lot of people thought that he was going to join United. But, when I look at it in hindsight, maybe he was just like, hey, like the plan was always going to be to join Manchester City, but I just need a thing in the interim, like a club in the interim, because, City themselves probably admitted that we're not there yet. Right. And so like, we don't have the right people in place. We don't have the infrastructure. The academy talent isn't there. And so they really set Pep up for success when they came in, not necessarily just from like the transfer spending standpoint, but from the entire structure being built around him. So I think it's interesting. I'm curious though for what you guys would probably see is I don't think we wait until the summer to have Jason Wilcox get sacked. I think it happens in February. And the reason why I say it is, you might think I'm crazy, and the chat might also think I'm crazy about it, is we're going for an interim.
We already think that.
Yeah, I know. But we're going for an interim only because I can only fear like understand that Omar Barada recognizes that the next permanent manager, the person who's making that decision, is going to be the sporting director. And he likely has lost faith in Wilcox, especially after with everything that's been done. And they're probably going to assess and review everything one more time once, the January transfer window closes and, once Carrick has been settled in for a couple of games before they go, hey, thanks for your time. You're not the guy anymore. And we just want to take it into a different direction. And maybe we see the likes of Christopher Vivell step up or maybe like fill that role. And whoever the next sporting director would be a real sign for, okay, here's who the next manager would also be. So what do you guys think? Do you think they're thinking in that way, or am I giving him a little too much
so
credit?
close to saying,
they ought to be. They ought to be thinking like that. In a way, the sporting director is the next statement styling. It's not the manager, in some ways. Because if you don't get that right, you've got to already be thinking, like you said, how City did it completely. And I'm so envious of City, and it's terrible that they're doing it and we're not. But they had everything aligned. So you've got to actually sort out your sporting director before you even get your manager in.
Yeah.
And you know that
Ryan,
they're going to be the good fit.
Yeah. Ryan, you were about to say something. What were you about to say?
I was just saying, I thought you were going to say exactly what I was thinking, which is I would say 75% chance that Vivel takes over Wilcox's role. I think that we've heard a lot of talk from journalists about Vivel being heavily involved with who the next manager is going to be. And I think that is leading up to that potential. I don't like it. I don't really want him to be that. I don't like the guy. I'll just say that. But I think that is pretty likely.
Yeah. George 9491 in the chat says Wilcox and Berard are mates, though they were best buddies at City. Yeah, I think I agree. They definitely have a relationship that was there in the past. But I'll offer you maybe my counter to that. When Wilcox first came in, he was not coming in as a sporting director, right? That was Dan Ashworth. And obviously, Barada has to have some level of call or influence within it. So I think the decision-making trio on that was Sir Jim, Dave Brailsford, and Omar Barada on Dan Ashworth, and probably some input from I think Jean-Claude Blanc when that was there. But they brought in Wilcox because they felt like, hey, this is a good guy that understands the technical aspects of the game. And then when Dan Ashworth left, they probably thought this is because they were impressed early on with Wilcox. And I mean, even I was, right? That they're like, hey, maybe he can actually step into this sporting director role. He did it at Southampton, but it wasn't big enough. So they didn't bring him in like that right away. So they were just like, why don't you take this step up, right? Because we think that there's an opportunity here for you to be able to do it, and that's eventually what ended up with the situation where we are now. So I wouldn't be surprised if Barada goes, let's just walk back that decision because that was the wrong one, and then we kind of go from there. And to be fair, right? Initially we were a lot worried. We were worried about are Ineos even bringing the right profile of players in. We weren't necessarily considering have they brought in the right executive structure in place? And I feel like now it's the opposite, right? We're just like, wait, hold up. The players haven't been that bad, but the executives have been totally,
I mean,
correct
me if I'm wrong, but all of the major appointments have joined United and either ended up in or joined in a significantly higher capacity than what they previously worked at in the majority of their career. Like Barada, it was a big step up. Wilcox Gieri did a month or two as sporting director, but he didn't really do it. I think even Vivell was more of a head of recruitment type thing rather than full director of football, right? So I think most of them, they're saying best in class, but they were best in class in like grade 2, not grade 6, or whatever the American equivalent is, middle school, not high school or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think it was very worrying for me that we appointed, these people who hadn't really got that level of experience. And actually, it really does need, some safe pair of hands, really. And we haven't got that, especially with let's say, a meddling owner. It needs someone really strong to stand up to the owner. You actually have to have a real, you have to have fights sometimes, But I'm sure Michael Edwards and Jurgen Klopp had fights. And so you actually need someone to be able to stand up to the owner. Either CEO and director of football have to be strong enough. As it's a kind of bulwark.
Yeah. Ed goes in the chat. All three of them are out of their depth.
Yeah, that's essentially what I think. Essentially, yeah.
And just cope. I think after the protest in February, someone will get sacked, and I think it'll be both Vivell and Wilcox, apparently.
I think Vivell's really come out of this power struggle on top. He seems to be the one that nobody's really gunning for within the actual hierarchy. The fans are gunning for him, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But he seems insulated from that within the club.
Yeah. This is, I think it's very interesting with just not only, I feel like it's so funny. We don't have much to look forward to on the pitch that we're debating the power struggles in the boardroom instead, right? Because it's like, what are we going to do? But I guess this is just, where we're at. So, it's been an hour and totally respect everyone's time and appreciate for you guys coming here. So we'll close it off. And I just want, your final thoughts on a prediction, not for like the next coming set of games, but for the next 5 set of games that we have gotten, right? Because I think the City and the Arsenal one, it's a little bit unfair, but the schedule after that does ease up a little bit. How many points do we get out for the next 5 set of games? Vic, if you're still there, I'd like to come to you first. Vic, what do you think?
I don't have the other 3 fixtures after the Arsenal City game.
Oh, just give me 1 second. Let me pull it up.
It's Tottenham, Fulham, and is it West Ham?
I think so. 1 sec.
All right.
Not in order.
No. So okay. So here it's City first. Then it's Arsenal at the Emirates. Then we're playing Fulham, Fulham at home. Then Spurs at home, and then West Ham away.
Oh yeah. I reckon Fulham's on the rise. So it was Spurs. Oh God, not Spurs. And West Ham. Man, I know I'm not inspiring much hope here, but I'd say 2 to 3 points.
Ooh, okay. Wow, hot take. Raphael, what do you think? How many points out of those next 5?
I mean, it depends how it goes in these first 2 matches, but I think basically every team knows we have a weak underbelly. They don't fear us, so they're going to come to us. Even the little teams are coming to us. If we lose badly to City and if we lose to Arsenal, which I think might be 1-0, I think we're going to lose all 5 potentially. Maybe 1 point. 1 point, maybe. I don't even know where.
Ooh,
I could
doom and gloom there. Okay, all right. The bottom 2 panels are very, not optimistic. But okay, well let's go to Ryan. Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah, I thought I was being pessimistic earlier when I said I could see us coming out with 4 or 5. Going through the results, so I think we'll lose to City. As much as it pains me, I think we'll lose to Arsenal. I think we'll bounce back with a win against Fulham because we tend to do that in rough periods. I think Tottenham have been a struggle recently. Maybe a draw, maybe a win. Maybe a draw, maybe a loss. Don't think we'll win. And then I can see West Ham, just as annoying as it is, I can see West Ham just holding us to a draw. So yeah, I'm going to say 5 points. And really quickly, I know this wasn't your question, Shailene, but I just want to add one thing that I kept trying to come on the lives to say it for the last few shows and not managed to. There was a mention a few lives ago about Carlo Ancelotti, and everyone thinks there's absolutely no chance of him. And I just want to say, I think everyone has his character entirely wrong. Anyone that's followed his career knows that if the money was right, Carlo Ancelotti would manage at Hooters. Like, he doesn't care. He went and managed Everton. If we gave him the right offer, he would come to us. Whether he's right or not, I don't know. But anyway, I just wanted to add that.
Carlo Ancelotti managing Hooters. That would be a sight to see. I
Yeah.
love that. Okay.
I'm all in to see Ancelotti in a crop top.
Vic, you're putting a visual in my head, buddy. I don't need that. All right, Alex, let's give me your prediction. I need to stop thinking of Carlo.
I thought I was going to be pessimistic by saying 6 or 7 points, but after what everyone else has said, that now looks like optimism. So I'm going to go with 5 points. I reckon they will struggle to get anything from the next 2 games, from the derby and from the Arsenal game. That said, I think they've got a chance of getting something from Fulham at home, Spurs at home. Spurs have got their own problems to deal with, right. And it depends which West Ham team turns up. So yeah, I can see the points coming from those 3 games. So let's say 5 points.
Yeah, I'm thinking that we might end up with 8 or 9. I think that there's like two wins, 2 draws, and a loss, or 3 wins and like 2 losses as the results.
Okay. I'm pessimistic because Alex Ferguson used to say about Spurs, right lads, it's Spurs. I think other teams now say, right lads, it's United. That's how bad it is. Right, lads.
We've given the tough teams a game this season. We're performing against the good teams, I feel like, and it just seems like the bottom half teams are the not so well ones that we seem to like slip away. So I think with Carrick coming in, right, like he's going to be able to give us a bit more of that, stability or resilience, and to not like drop the points. I think. Nelson says it in the chat right here. It's like, we always perform well against good teams, and the mid teams are where we will play the best. The only hard game is City because he doesn't have enough time. And I would also like to caveat too is that what if Thomas Frank is the next manager to go, and they find their next permanent or their interim right as they play us too, right? So I think Spurs can kind of be a bit of a bogey result for us, and maybe a loss comes from there. But you never know.
After all the disrespect that Nelson's given him, Conor Gallagher is going to come on and score 2 against us. And everyone's going to cry.
Guys, I actually, guys, there's a bit of breaking news here. the new Spurs manager is Big Bird from Sesame Street. From Ed. Oh man.
That'll be fun.
Oh,
That'll be fun.
It's great.
You gotta laugh.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for for coming. For those of you guys who haven't liked the stream, please like the stream, subscribe, join the Discord as well, and you'll be able to find out, the next time I'm going live, especially because it won't be as consistent as Andy did, like multiple times a day. But yeah, for those of you guys wondering where he is, he's traveling to India. He's taking a well-deserved break, attending a wedding as well. But they're still planning. Him and Rishi are planning to maybe do a stream or a few streams from there, maybe even a live match watch along from there as well. And for those of you guys who are watching this later, because I know a lot of people do, get in the comments. Let me know what you think. How many points we're going to get from the next 5 set of games that we've got, and if whether or not Michael Carrick even has a chance to be the permanent manager. But thank you all, Alex, Ryan, Raphael, Vic, as well. Appreciate you guys. Have a good one. We'll see you.
Yeah, and well done, Chairlin, holding
care,
the
guys.
fort.